Everyone, welcome back to CPK Books and Accounts. If you're a business owner, payroll professional, accountant, or bookkeeper dealing with US payroll taxes, then this video is for you. Today, we are going to understand IRS Form 940, the Employer's Annual Federal Unemployment Tax Return, also known as FUTA. We will cover what FUTA tax is, who needs to file Form 940, how FUTA wages are calculated, important filing deadlines, deposit requirements, and a complete step-by-step walkthrough of the form. By the end of this video, you will have a clear understanding of how to prepare and file Form 940 accurately and confidently. So let's get started and simplify Form 940 together. First of all, what is FUTA tax? As we have discussed in earlier videos as well, FUTA is paid only by employers. It is not withheld from employees' wages. So earlier we had discussed about the full form of FUTA. That what is FUTA? FUTA is Federal Unemployment Tax. Federal Unemployment Tax Act. So FUTA is paid by only employers. It is not withheld from employees' wages. This will be deducted from. This will be contributed by the employer at the time of payroll processing. So for example, I am an employee of a company. So if my gross salary is 4,000, then employer will contribute or employer will additionally pay the taxes of FUTA on behalf of me to the IRS. But I will not make any contribution from my 4,000 for FUTA. So the standard FUTA tax rate is 6% on the first 7,000 of wages paid to each employee during the year, during the calendar year. Calendar year refers to Jan to December. So whenever I as an employee will earn 7,000 salary, after that I don't have to pay taxes, or employer don't have to pay taxes or withhold taxes on behalf of me. Employers who pay SUTA, state unemployment taxes, on time may qualify for a credit of up to 5.4%, reducing the effective FUTA rate to 0.6% in many states. So let's discuss this again. So FUTA will be paid up to 7,000 of salary in a calendar year for each employee, and the percentage is 6%. The FUTA is 6%, but if employer is paying SUTA as well for the employee, then employer will get the deduction. Employer will get the credit of 5.4%, which means at the end of the calculation, you have to, or employer have to pay only 0.6% FUTA on 7,000 gross salary. And suppose if I am the only employee of the company and I have earned $10,000 in a calendar year. So up to 7,000, employer has to withhold and pay to IRS 0.6%, which is $42. So FUTA for each employee is $42 maximum in a calendar year. Moving on to what is Form 940. Form 940 is the filed annually with the IRS to report and pay FUTA tax. Employers generally pay FUTA tax on the first 7,000 of wages paid to each employee during the year. So before the start, you will typically need total wages paid during the year to the employee or employees, amounts exempt from FUTA, SUTA information, FUTA deposit made during the year. Now, Form 940, Employer's Annual Federal Unemployment Tax Return. So this Form 940 is the tax return which is not for making the payment of FUTA, but to report the FUTA paid on quarterly basis for a calendar year, report to IRS. So Form 40 is the IRS form used by employers in the United States to report and pay FUTA taxes. Who must file Form 940? Generally, you must file Form 940 if either of these applies. You paid wages $1,500 or more to employees during any calendar quarter in the current or previous year, or you had one or more employees for at least part of a day in 20 or more different weeks during the current or previous year. Any one of these conditions should be fulfilled. Okay, what information is reported in 940? What we have to report? So in 940, total payments made to the employees, payment exempt from FUTA tax, taxable FUTA taxes, wages, FUTA tax before adjustment, credit reduction adjustments, FUTA tax liability by quarter, FUTA deposit already made, and balance due or overpayment. These points we will discuss deeply according to the 940 form in further slides. So FUTA wages calculation example. Suppose you paid an employee 20,000 during the year. Since FUTA applies only to the first 7,000, taxable FUTA wages is 7,000. FUTA tax is 6%, which is 420. State credit, if you are paying SUTA taxes, then you will get credit of 5.4%. And after this 5.4%, this 5.4% is equal to 378 on 7,000 taxable FUTA wages. So at the end, the net FUTA tax is $42. Effective rate. Here is the calculation mentioned that how $42 have been calculated. For each employee, maximum $42 will be deducted for FUTA. If there are 10 employees and each employee has earned more than 7,000 in a calendar year, it means that the total FUTA tax to be paid is $42 for each employee multiplied by 10 employees. The total is 420. Now deposit requirements. You generally must deposit FUTA tax when accumulated liability exceeds $500. If liability is $500 or less at the end of a quarter, carry it forward. So suppose in first quarter your FUTA tax is $300, so you don't have to pay it mandatory. You can pay that, like if you are processing the payroll on Gusto, ADP, Rippling, or any other third party website, so they pay all the taxes, FUTA, federal taxes, 941, SUTA as well. They pay all the taxes whenever they process the payroll, bi-weekly, weekly, monthly. But FUTA can be paid only if in first quarter the amount exceed 500. If it is not exceeded, then you can carry forward to the next quarter, to next quarter, to next quarter. If year end liability is 500 or less, you can pay it with form 940. So as mentioned, in first quarter you have the total FUTA tax was $100, in second quarter $100, third quarter $100, fourth quarter $100. So at the end of the year, the total FUTA tax due is 400. So if you haven't made any payment in between the year, you can do the payment while filing the 940 tax return at the end of the year or in Jan month for previous year. So deposits are made electronically through the IRS payment system, and due date for FUTA filing is 940 form filing is January 31st, following the end of calendar year. Okay, so now we will start discussing each and every column of the 940 form. First of all, this is the basic part of 940 form which should be filled by the employer. Just to employer has to input their details. For example, first of all you can see EIN number. So EIN number employers can fill, name, the company name, trade name if any, it could be DBA name, doing business as, then address of the company. Okay, and after that going on to the next part. So after filing all the information of company into first column, then there will be some parts, part 1, part 2, part 3, which needs to be filled, and we will discuss about those parts and the sub points of those parts as well. So part 1, which is tell the IRS about your SUTA, state unemployment tax, or tell us about your return. If any line does not apply, leave it blank. See instructions before completing part 1. So in part 1, line 1A, if you had to pay SUTA in one state only, enter the state abbreviation. Abbreviations refers to, for California the abbreviation will be CA, and for New York it will be NY, for Florida and FL, and so on. So enter the state abbreviation in the column if you paid SUTA to only one state and all wages were reported to that state. And line B, 1B, multi-state employer. Check this box if wages were reported to more than one SUTA state employment agency. So if you had to pay SUTA tax in more than one state, you are a multi-state employer, and you have to check here at the 1B cell. Once you will click on that, you have to complete the schedule A as well, which will be attached with the form 90 at the bottom, third or fourth page. Now moving on to line 2, credit reduction state. Check if you paid wages in a state designated by the Department of Labor as a credit reduction state. A credit reduction state has borrowed federal unemployment funds and not repaid them timely, reducing the normal FUTA credit. So credit reduction states refers to, so suppose the state you are working in, so the employer is in California state, and California state has taken, the state unemployment department has taken some loan from federal unemployment department, and state unemployment department is unable to pay back that amount. In that case federal unemployment department will get that amount from the employer, but on some calculation basis. So that is the credit reduction state. Part 2, determine FUTA tax before adjustment, line 3 and line 3. So here you can see that screenshot, which I was not able to include in this slide, so that's why I mentioned that in the third one. So part 2, determine FUTA tax before adjustment. In line 3, total payments to all employees. So in line 3 we have to mention that how much total wages have been paid for all employees. In line 4, payments exempt from FUTA tax. In line 4, payment exempt from FUTA tax, enter payments not subject to FUTA, such as employer contribution to qualified retirement plan, certain fringe benefits, group term life insurance, dependent care assistance, some non-cash payments, or pre-tax Medicare taxes as well, Medicare payments as well. So here payment exempt from FUTA tax. In line 3 you will mention all the amount paid to all employees. If any of the amounts which is included in wages but not subject for the FUTA tax, then you can check the box 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D, 4E, and once you will check any box, you have to mention the amount on line 4 as well. So in line 5, total of payments made to each employee in excess of 7,000. So again I will take the same example. If I am an employee and I have earned 10,000 in a calendar year, so what employer will do? Employer will mention in line 5 only 7,000. Rest 3,000 is not subject for the FUTA tax. So that's why. In line 5, the excess payment is 3,000. I am earning 10,000 in a calendar year, and the FUTA will be applied on 7,000. So I have earned 3,000 more than the limit. So that 3,000 will be mentioned in line 5. In line 6, you have to total out the line 4, 5 and 6. Line 4 plus line 5, that will be mentioned into line 6. And line 7, total taxable FUTA wages. So total taxable FUTA wages will be calculated by line 3 minus line 4 minus line 5, or you can say line 3 minus line 6. And then FUTA tax before adjustment, whatever amount you will mention on, or whatever amount will be calculated on 7th line, on that 7th line you will charge 0.6%, and whatever amount you will get, you will mention on line 8. In part 3, so part 3 is related to adjustments. Line 9, if all wages were paid in credit reduction states, use if all FUTA taxable wages were not subject to SUTA tax. Then line 10, use if some FUTA taxable wages were excluded from SUTA tax, or you paid SUTA tax late. So if some FUTA taxable wages were not excluded from wages were excluded from SUTA tax, or you paid SUTA tax late, complete the worksheet in the form 940 instruction and enter the result. Line 11, if credit deduction applies. Some states are designated as credit deduction states because they have unpaid FUTA loan as mentioned earlier. So majorly what I have seen while working on the clients, line 9 and line 10 will be left blank by the employers or by the payroll providers. In line 11 you will find some amount here. Why? The same reason, because state unemployment department has taken some loan from federal unemployment, which state unemployment department is unable to pay, and that's why federal unemployment is getting that back from the employers in small parts. So in line 11, some states are designated as credit deduction states because they have unpaid FUTA loans. If you paid wages in a credit deduction state, you must complete Schedule A and enter the additional FUTA tax from Schedule A on line 11. So majorly what you will see on line 11, whatever FUTA tax is due in a calendar year, that the same amount will be mentioned in line 11 as well. So moving on to part 4, determine your FUTA tax and balance due, form 940. So line 12 is total FUTA tax after adjustment. Here you have to add all the 8, 9, 10, 11 line. So here you can see line 8 where you had calculated the 0.6% on total taxable wages. Then 9, 10, 11 row. 9, 10 can be ignored. In 11th line you will mention the credit deduction amount, which will be mentioned by federal unemployment department. Total will be mentioned on line 12. Then line 13, FUTA tax deposited for the year including any overpayment applied from a prior year. Enter total FUTA tax here you have already paid during the year, so that will be mentioned on line 13. And line 14, balance due. So if line 12 is greater than line 13, if the amount mentioned in 12, that line 12 will show that how much amount is due to pay. In line 13, how much amount is already paid, and if there is any balance due to be paid, then it will be mentioned on 14th row. If there will be any overpayment you have already made, that the FUTA was due $400 but you have paid $500, so that $100 overpayment will be mentioned on 15A line. And after that in 15B you can mention whether you want to adjust that amount in next return or you want to receive a refund. If you want to receive a refund, then you have to update the details of routing number, type of bank account and account number in 15C, D and E. Now part 5. In part 5, this is the simplest one. You just have to mention the quarterly FUTA amount. So for first quarter, for second, for third, for fourth, in 16th row you have to mention the quarterly FUTA amount, and on 17th the total of all quarters. In line 6 you have to mention whether someone has filed the 940 form on behalf of you. It could be CPA, accountant or some other person. If yes, then you will click on yes and mention the phone number and the name of the designee or the CPA here. Part sign, the employer has to sign here that everything is under my knowledge and I reviewed the form, and just for the verification they have to sign this form. Then there will be another part which will be paid, prepare, use only. So paid, prepare, use only is the section at the end of form 940 that is completed only if someone else prepared the return for you. As mentioned earlier, if CPA is filing that, so he has to mention all details here. Then at the very bottom of the form 940 you will find this 940V. This is the payment voucher. This form 940V is a payment voucher or payment slip that accompanies form 940 when you are mailing a payment to the IRS. mailing to the IRS, not filing electronically FUTA or 940 form. So use form 940B if you are filing a paper form 940. You owe taxes. Line 14 shows the balance due. You are paying by check or money order and mailing the payment. So 940B will be used when you are doing the offline filing instead of electronically filing. So that was the complete overview of IRS Form 940 and FUTA tax reporting, and I covered who must file Form 940 and how FUTA tax is calculated, deposit requirements, due dates, and the key sections of the form that employers need to complete. I hope this video helped make the filing process easier to understand. If you found this tutorial useful, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with others who work in payroll or accounting, and subscribe to CPK Books and Accounts for more practical tutorials on US payroll, taxation, bookkeeping, and accounting. If you have any questions about Form 940, feel free to leave them in the comment section below and I'll do my best to help. Thank you for watching this video and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much.